Good evening. I'd like to call to order the November 12th, 2024 regular board meeting. I'd like to announce that the meetings of the Mechanicsburg Area School District Board of Directors are being recorded and live streamed for the purpose of transparency and increased public access. The live stream, along with the recordings from previously held meetings, can be found on the school board YouTube channel. If all would like to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll have a brief moment of silent meditation. I will move on to roll call. Mrs. Swiger.
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Frenchel?
Here.
Mrs. Huff? Here. Mr. Kickline?
Here.
Dr. Lebo?
Here.
Ms. Morgan? Here. Dr. Rhodes?
Present.
Mr. Sanker?
Here.
Mr. Rupp?
Here. And the endorsement of agenda. Were there any changes to the agenda of tonight's meeting?
There are no changes to the agenda and it will stand as written.
All right, and the reading of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 1st, 2024. Do any board members have any comments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, they'll be accepted as printed. Move on to item 2, hearing of visitors. Meeting of the Mechanicsburg Area School District Board of Directors. There will be 2 opportunities for public comment this evening. As a reminder, public comment is limited to residents and taxpayers of the school district. At this time, we have reached the first opportunity for public comment. This opportunity is reserved for comments related to items that are listed on the evening's agenda for a vote. A second opportunity for public comment will occur at the end of the meeting. The second opportunity for public comment is reserved for comments on issues not listed on the agenda and not being voted upon. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and requires community members to observe a reasonable decorum. If you'd like to address the board, please come up to the podium and share your name and the municipality in which you reside. This is for items that are on tonight's agenda for a vote. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, reports and presentations. Superintendent of Schools report, Dr. Pitts.
Thank you. Computer's being a little.
Yes.
Let's get
Why I
here.
started reading.
It's all right. All right. So first this evening, in conjunction with our monthly opportunity to be able to hear from one of our buildings, we have Broad Street Elementary with us this morning, or this evening. And with us is Miss Alexander, and she's going to introduce some of our folks from Broad Street.
Good evening. Hello.
Hello. Good, right there. Yep.
So tonight, what I'm going to do is have one of our art teachers, Mrs. Rachel Connell, share with you how she has taken our art program in our early grades and really taken what was an art room and transformed it into an art studio. Well, what happens when you do that? Well, you have students who walk in and they no longer are just students, but they become artists. So tonight you're going to have a glimpse into what is it like in the art studio as a primary artist, one of our youngest Wildcats, and what does it look like to move these students and grow them into the artists they become as they move through our system. So excited to share this presentation with you. Mrs. Rachel Cottle.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm also nervous. I'm much more comfortable in a room full of 5-year-olds holding paintbrushes than I am in a room full of adults. Thank you also to Ms. Alexander and Dr. Rudisell and all the administrators for the support of this program. I know a lot of other art teachers who believe in what I'm about to share with you, but who don't have the support of the people who support they need. So I feel really fortunate to be here. Thank you also to my colleagues, some art department friends back here. We're a small department, but we are a supportive and mighty one. I love teaching elementary art here in Mechanicsburg, and I'm wondering what your elementary art experience looked like if you had one. My guess is that it was your teacher holding up an example, and your job was to mimic that example, the subject of their choice, using the tools of their choice. You probably made up your mind pretty quickly if you were good at art or if you were doing it right. And those feelings may have followed you all the way through to today. What you won't see at Broad Street is a room filled with projects that look the same and mean little or nothing to the children who create them. You won't see students giving up because their work isn't right or good. And you won't see them comparing their work to each other's or to mine, because I don't really put any of mine up. What you will see is an active, vibrant studio space. Do I have a clicker? Or can you hold it right there? Okay. You'll see an active, vibrant studio space filled with kids who are excited to be there. Look at those happy faces. Engaged in the creative process. You'll see artists taking on challenges, developing a growth mindset, strengthening fine motor and dexterity skills, asking why art class goes by so quickly and why can't we have more of it. And you'll see our visual art curriculum's transfer goals in action. So on the infographic that I've created in front of you, you can reference those 3 transfer goals on the right. There's create, critique, and impact. And on the left, you'll see the 8 studio habits of mind. So these are the habits of artists and creative people. I know some of you have artists in your family, and you can probably recognize some of these habits right there. Some of the ones we focus on the most are developing craft, creating original artwork, envisioning, which is so precious because they all go like this. They picture their art in their brain before they make their picture on their paper. They plan it out, and reflect, for which we're assessing and analyzing our work. So these habits are really important for artists in a studio like ours, which is guided by the pedagogy of TAB, or Teaching for Artistic Behavior. So this is a research-based pedagogy. It aligns with national standards, and the creative process is student-driven. The distinction between TAB and just letting kids do whatever they want, which sounds terrible, is that in the TAB studio, we are teaching the artists to think like artists, and to not what to think, but how to think for themselves. So they're guiding themselves through the creative process with a little bit of my help. Let's see. Here is evidence of what our studio looks like. So here at Broad Street, we have our studio set up in centers. So it's kind of a buffet style, and students have the opportunity to access what they need to access when they need it. So students are getting up and moving around. They're finding tools for drawing, painting, collage, printing, and more, depending on what we're working on. Through a combination of direct instruction and their independent exploration, they discover ways to use these tools and mediums safely and effectively. It also requires them to take care of the studio space. And for a space that, over 200 6-, 7-, and 8-year-olds are coming in and out of, they do a pretty nice job, I have to say. I always tell them it's not all my mess, so I can't clean it all up. I'm not their mom. There's one at Northside. I am her mom, but she also she still has to clean it. Our second transfer goal, is critique. Throughout class, I circulate to offer feedback. I help them, I praise them, and they also are moving around, so they're interacting with each other and offering each other feedback. Every class ends like this. It's one of my favorite parts, where they're all circling up and they're sharing their work, and they're always so upset when they don't get a chance to share. It is just rich with reflection and deep thinking. And I'm always so impressed and so thrilled with the way they are actively engaging in the critique process. You know, a lot of us would probably look at a piece of artwork and be afraid to share our thoughts or for worry of what others would think. Hands are up and they're offering feedback and they're just speaking so comfortably. And it's really, really a joy to watch and to witness. Finally, we have impact. The young artists are immersed in art history and different cultures. We use books and visual examples and anecdotes to show them how art connects to and enhances learning and life outside of the studio. So on the left, you can see a little girl looking at Starry Night, kind of trying to imitate some of those strokes in the sky of her own collage, which is really cool to watch. I had trouble getting a photo of her because she was so close to the table, working so hard. This fella in the middle drew that from his memory. That's a first grader.
Wow.
He was not looking at a photo. He drew that from memory. Because Mrs. Connell, I love maps. Oh, yes, I can see that. And I never would have discovered that talent or that passion had I held up a picture and made him imitate it. And this friend on the right is clearly excited. This is a story he shared with me repeatedly that his mother had shared with him at home about a castle in the sky, the treasure, and he was so excited to take it home and share it. He would not let me hang it in the hallway because it had to go home right away. And he is all those are first graders right there, actually. Look at those smiles. The process is really where the magic happens. And I would just encourage and invite each and every one of you to come out to Broad Street sometime. I'm at Northside too. I'm at kindergarten too. I don't know if you want to come out here. We get pretty messy. But to come on out to Broad Street and just see the magic that's happening as these kids are creating artwork that is so deeply meaningful to them. But you know, sometimes we do get some pretty awesome results too. So I brought two of my sweet artists along, and they're going to share their artwork, maybe what they love about art class, their art teacher. We'll see what they say. And yeah, Charlotte, want to come on up? This is Charlotte Bach. She's one of our third graders.
Wow.
So let's see, Charlotte, you never had come up with a title for this. Did you have a title? No, and that's okay. Sometimes artists don't title their work. So Charlotte worked on this after we talked about oil pastels, and I shared some techniques with them, and she took it and ran with it. What would you say was the most challenging part of this?
Probably the shapes of it.
Just those basic shapes. And so what helped you to get started?
Kind of just like drawing them in my head and then like putting them on paper.
You use pencil to start. Let's see, what does it say down here? You got inspiration from something I had shared. Do you remember, like, what were you thinking as you were making this, or what were you feeling?
I was feeling like if I make a mistake, it's gonna look bad, but then when I finally finished it, it looked pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'd say.
What do you love most about this piece?
I like the colors of it.
Too. We talked a little bit about the cool colors and making it stand out with this opposite in the back. And am I right in assuming that art's one of your favorite specials? What do you like about art, Charlotte?
I just like being like creative with everything.
And do you like the way that we do things, how you get to make choices for yourself? Yeah, you always come with ideas and do a really nice job. Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte, for joining us. I also have Avery. Avery is a second grader, and she just finished this last week, right? It didn't even go up on the wall. So this is called The Beautiful Forest. You probably could have figured that out for yourself. And Avery, what are some of the centers you used to make this?
I used the middle ground, the foreground, and the background.
And we learned about those things. I taught you a funny little dance. I won't make you do that right now. Maybe we could teach it to Dad, though. And how did you create these trees and rocks?
So I used funky scissors to cut the rocks out of paper, and then there's like this really thin, cool paper that kind of looked like trees. So I used that instead of just.
And we opened the Collage Center when Avery decided to make this, and hers just looked so unlike any I had seen before. I think this is my favorite part. What do you have up here? Because they can't see from so far away.
I have the banana.
The bananas are in the tree for the monkeys that are up there too. What's your favorite part of this piece, Avery?
I like that I added bubbles to them.
How'd you make those?
I used foam.
Yes, you did. Nicely done. Was there any challenge in creating this?
Yeah, the one challenge was cutting out the tree.
And what do you like about art, Avery? Because I know you like art.
I like the color and I
Make collages. And you did a great job. And I'm sure this won't be the only piece that goes in the hallway this year. Thank you so much, Avery. Thanks, Dad. Thank you all.
Any questions? Hope that gave you a glimpse into what it's like to be an artist out Broad Street. You don't just go to art anymore. You walk into a studio and become an artist.
I think she did a great job talking in front of adults
Yeah, you
here.
did.
More so than a lot of other people, so I
The kids did well
commend
too.
you. Yes, very good.
I love going in. I'll just kind of go in, sit at a table, grab some paper, start drawing myself. Just kind of blend in, don't we?
That's right.
It's
Well,
fun.
And you always come in and say, this is where I come when I just need to get back center. And it works.
Yeah.
I was thinking this sounds self-serving, like the board did this, but someone had to explain this to me, that you asked about what it was like growing up. Art in school for me was the teacher bringing in the art card into our classroom. And the idea and the space that you showed us,
Yes.
that someone had to explain to me that, oh yeah, by the way, we're building, permanent classrooms for art and music, and what it can do.
Yes.
I think it's really cool to see all that here in the process, and to see the fact that you aren't as limited to what you brought today, or exactly the examples you showed of kind of the before method and
Yes.
versus this. So.
And thank you for the spaces.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing that Brian did. He stole my thunder.
Sorry.
I mean, when I went to Broad Street many years ago, Mrs. Failer came in with the art card, and it was very limited what she could do, because everything had to go, in that one little cart that ended up in a closet as she went from school to school.
Yeah.
And like Brian said, when we really toured the buildings and saw, what was proposed, what we ultimately built, and giving that to you guys is just amazing.
Yes, it's been such a gift for our students. I started here in April of 2020, so I really started from my kitchen in this one. I left one district and came here at a very strange time. And then at that time, Broad Street, and then immediately after Northside were being renovated. And we didn't have spaces, and I was very limited. So it feels like an incredible gift every day to walk into these beautiful studios.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for what you do to bring out the creativity. I always think back, somebody did that to my son, and just to see where he took that as a career and how he's doing, and it's just so great to see the kids getting that opportunity to not feel boxed in. For me, it wasn't an art card, it was systemary, whichever was coming in. And you drew exactly what she wanted to draw, and it was not a pleasant environment. So I just know that the way he was able to just express himself over the years, and just seeing this even continue to go bigger and bigger, just is great to see what they can do and tap into their imagination.
They're amazing.
I would encourage the two girls, if you love art, stay with it. Art was my favorite subject when I grew up, and I'm 50 years, 60 years later, I'm still in art in my job. So it's a great career, and if you love it, you should work what you love. So stick with it if you love it.
Sure.
I do have a question, not to put you on the spot, but where are you at with technology and art? Like, I know your tablets, your iPads, things like that. Are we using that stuff at all, or do you still prefer to, at that age level, to just cut things out? And
I really prefer to give them what I call the more traditional technologies that these artists have been using for hundreds of thousands of years. really outside of the art studio. Some kids aren't gonna get to use a brayer to make prints or get to use clay. I had a kid today say, this is my first time painting ever and it's so much fun. And I also see them 40 minutes once every 6 days.
Right.
So to be able to expose them to and train them on everything I want to share with them, it takes up all of our time. I also am finding that we're just really suffering fine motor wise at the youngest grades. And so anything I can do to get those fingers moving other than this, I want to do.
Right.
So they do get into technology, I know, more in some of the older grades in art, but for us, we're sticking with
So you're
the
building the
markers.
foundation on more traditional.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Interesting.
But with the introduction of these beautiful studios, we also have a kiln in every building. And so we're also getting to do some of those little things that we wouldn't get to do otherwise.
Even just moving around, just the idea of having a place to go critique one another and kind of, I think that's just all these other extra little bits with development, I think is really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's teaching them to really be autonomous for themselves and take care of themselves. And like I said, they're pretty amazing at it.
I love the communication aspect of this curriculum as well, including the critique part, some of which I didn't learn until college. But being able to envision what is on your mind, create something, give feedback, communicate sometimes very subjective feelings, that's all very important in the modern workforce.
Absolutely. And as you saw with the two young ladies who shared, they do an artist statement when they hang their artwork up. So they're also writing about it, which is always wonderful to see.
That's with the paper hanging.
Yes.
I was gonna ask you that.
Yep.
So I'll draw one more connection for you to your work as a board and then a little bit of a preview as well. You talked about building the spaces and providing the resources to be able to build those spaces, but you also approved the curriculum that has allowed amazing teachers like Mrs. Connell to be able to bring that to life. If you remember just last year, we brought forward the art curriculum and that is this. That was the underpinnings, the foundation of this, that now Mrs. Connell's been able to run with and again, bring to life for our students. The preview I'll give you is that in our next work session, we'll be bringing forward some discussion about what does the future of our fine and applied arts at the elementary level look like, and how can we make sure that we guarantee some of these kinds of experiences for our youngest learners and perhaps continue to enhance the program that we already have. So again, your fingerprints are on the foundation of these decisions that ultimately give our students these kind of experiences. So great job to you and your art team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Second item on my report is actually some really excellent news from the state. We were awarded a $1 million grant. We had applied for a grant for a middle school HVAC project, replacing the HVAC units at our middle school. Hard to believe that the middle school has been in existence long enough to begin doing some of that work to infrastructure, but it is. It's something that we knew was a project over the short term here in the future, but because this grant was available for us to apply to, we gave it a shot, and we got $1 million of a project that we were estimating at that time to be between $3 and $3.5 million. So what does that mean? That means that ultimately that may bump up the timeline for us to be able to take full advantage of that grant. So I will give you a little bit of a preview that this evening, obviously on the agenda, we are going to be authorizing the bid of our middle school stair tower project. That project, what you're authorizing tonight, is specific to the middle school stair towers. But we will be coming back in the November work session to be able to share more with you about the HVAC project and the possibility of being able to do that this upcoming summer as well. So again, tonight you're just authorizing for the stair towers. That's really could be a mutually exclusive project. However, if between the November work session and the December board meeting, you do authorize us to move forward with the HVAC project as well, there may be the opportunity to be able to marry those two up and do one formal bid for all that project together. So again, tonight, still just authorizing to bid for the stair towers, but we will be coming back in a few weeks to talk more about the grants and the HVAC project.
When does the grant have to be used by?
So we're still learning more about, we're still learning more about the details of it. I think to Dr. Bitz's point, some of the challenges, regardless of whatever the timeline is, probably which is usually with DCD a year or 2 years, part of the issue from our perspective is how do you line it up as a summer project, because we need to do it so that it doesn't interrupt the school year. And then as Dr. Bitz, I think, pointed out, what is a really good point is there probably is some economies of scale, and if we can marry it up with the stair tower project, then it's one set of oversight, one set of administrative fees, one set of overhead. We just have to explore that a little further logistically, and we plan to come back to the school board here later this month with some more conversation. Another thing I wanted to mention is I appreciate Dr. Bitz's support of this concept and applying for the grant, knowing that our facilities planning committee had identified this as a project anyway that was kind of hanging out there in our 3, 5, 7 year horizon. Mr. Hoffman, Mrs. Ely, both helped get kind of the grant spec'd out with our consultants, got an application in, and for us to receive $1 million, we were excited for it because just order of magnitude or context, I'll say, the state received $820 million of requests for grants and gave out $175 million in grants. And so $1 million of that 175 was for us. There's 500 districts in the IU in the state. And so many of those 500 districts applied. And so to be fortunate enough to just even get one, but get one in the amount of $1 million, I think was pretty high for those in our IU. So we're very excited about that prospect.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to whomever put the work into getting that grant and being awarded $1 million, thank them for us. That's amazing.
Give them half of it. No, I'm kidding, that's a joke.
I believe this,
Quarter.
coming to our next report, I actually believe the CTC won.
Yeah, we did all right.
Did you guys get a million?
No, we didn't get $1 million. We didn't, we got 300,000, I think, for HVAC upgrades of our own, so, yes.
So we're kind of beneficiary there too, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
helpful. It's helpful.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 3.02, Cumberland Perry Area Career and Technical Center Report. Mr. Sanger.
Thank you, and yeah, so you're right, we also, grant recipient there, and another grant that we'll report on in a little bit too that we just heard about, so that's good to hear about at the CTC because of a number of items on that we need for budgetary reasons and our own building project. The JSC last met on October 28th. We welcomed our new administrative director, Tom Wolf, who, as I mentioned, different than the governor, different than the author. He was previously at Lancaster County Career and Technical Center. And before that, he was there for about 7 years. And before that, was a diesel instructor at Cumberland Perry. So this is a way for him to return to his roots with some more experience. So that's kind of cool to see. I'm excited for him to get going. Among the items on the agenda in October was the first view of the 25-26 budget, likely with something like a 5% increase in the budget, but it's different for each of the sending districts based on our enrollment, 5-year enrollment averages. The overall increase, a lot of it has to do with the oil leak that I reported on last year. We knew about the CTC essentially expended all of its budgetary reserves, which was about $1 million, and deferred a number of other, capital improvements that just have to happen during the course of the year. So this doesn't totally replenish things, but this starts the rebuilding process for those funds and allows us to keep working on the things that we have to with the infrastructure there. So the first step is the CTC approves the budget in December, and then it goes out to the sending districts, and Mr. Longwell will report out on that in January, something like that. So you heard in the weekly update that we had shared that there was, because of the delays moving into the building project, there was a delay in the bid process sorry, the bids came in too high. So there's redesign work, and then they'll be hopefully going back out for bid with this redesign sometime later toward the end of the year, maybe the beginning of next year. But in the meantime, there's the CTC sitting on a portion of funds that had been sent in from the sending districts, including Mechanicsburg, and those funds are earning interest. So there was a thought of returning some of that interest returning the interest that's been accrued to the districts that have contributed there. So I thank Mr. Longwell publicly here for his help in crafting a good solution to making sure that everybody's feeling good about the project, and that everyone's feeling that we're still earning funds and it's all working out pretty well. So more to come there as the design comes into shape and the bids go out. Right now, things are kind of with the township. The redesign effort was extensive enough that it involved the township, Silver Spring Township, reviewing things and trying to get reapproval from them. Other things to note, that the JOC doesn't usually meet in November, but with new leadership at the CTC, we've decided to keep our November 25th meeting as a board retreat for JOC members and the sending school superintendents, in a workshop format that Dr. Roberts from the IU will facilitate and help with some goal setting and input from everyone on their thoughts on the future of the CTC. Following that meeting, the JOC will next meet on December 8th, our usual reorg meeting. That meeting traditionally has been held in the mornings, but it's been difficult to have a quorum for that, as a lot of more JOC members, including me, work now than in the past. So we moved that to a night meeting, as we usually have with other JOC meetings. So that's sort of the last month and up through December.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Sanger? Well, thank you for the report, Mr. Sanger. Item 3.04 Wildcat Foundation report. Mrs. Howell. Yeah, we'll move up.
Oh, okay. I don't have a report, so I'll make it pretty simple.
All right, item 3.03 Capital Area Intermediate Unit, Mr. Bradley.
The Intermediate Unit Board met on October 24th. There were a number of different items that we talked about. They continued to highlight some of the great work that they're doing in Loysville, working with the students there and building out soft skills like self-awareness, relationship building, trying to do that. They're also engaging with the Alliance of Chesapeake Bay to start a micro nursery and work on giving the kids the opportunity to plant and grow and kind of work through some of the nursing of young trees and things associated with that. They noted there is a significant growth in early intervention over the last 2 years, which is a good sign, but it is growing very rapidly. As part of human resources concerns, they're always looking for other opportunities to help, and so they're looking at building a relationship with an organization called CCRES, which is the Chester County Regional Education Services, which basically they do a lot of work on Eastern PA in assisting intermediate unit in school boards with paralegals, paraprofessionals, mental health professionals and others to try and help. They're experiencing, like many other areas, they're experiencing some issues with staffing and that. So they're looking, CCRES is looking to try and move a little more into the central PA area. So they're looking to potentially partner up with them to help alleviate some of the issues that they're encountering. From an educational services standpoint, they've been looking at artificial intelligence in education and doing seminars about artificial intelligence and the potential impacts. They're also looking at working on trying to figure out how to address the online testing requirements that are coming out. If you're not aware, most of the testing that is being done is going to have to be done online going forward. So there's a change and additional work that has to be done to accommodate that, and also to figure out how to actually implement that especially in the environment when we're talking about the IUs and having to address, not only school districts have to address it, but the IUs have to address it. And with a little more challenges that they were associating with. And then lastly, they highlighted an event that they put on called Out of the Darkness Walk, and it talks a little bit about suicide awareness, prevention, and just kind of coming out of the shadows of the mental health issues and kind of trying to continue to move forward with addressing the needs of the students as far as mental health is concerned. And then we'll get back together in another week. Next week is, they've moved it up because of the fact, the next board meeting up because of the fact that the next one would originally be scheduled on Thanksgiving evening, but I think we might be doing something else that night. So that's my report.
All right, very good. Thank you for the report. Any questions, comments for Mr. Bradley?
I'll just add to what Mr. Bradley said. So it's next year that all testing will be required to be online. They announced it obviously this past year. They are saying next year it will be required. Obviously, making sure that all systems are go is the state's responsibility with that. But one of the other pieces for the IU is the technology part, because our internet comes through from the IU. So making sure not only do we have the server power here locally to be able to support that, but the IU is working on that too, to make sure that when all of our districts all test on the exact same day at the exact same time, that the internet doesn't shut down.
This is for state testing?
All state tests, so Keystones and PSSAs will all be online as of next year.
Do you have another question?
Well, I was gonna ask the same question, asking about the testing. Thank you.
On to item 3.05, PSBA legislative report. I'd like to report that on November 2nd, Mr. Sanker, Mr. French, and myself, we were the 3 delegates to the PSBA conference, the annual conference. It's the major thing that's done there. It's where the voting is done on to approve the legislative agenda for the next year's legislative. And everything did pass. And honestly, Peter, that's about as well as it goes.
Okay.
So in the 16 years I've been doing it, it went from almost an all-day affair, and they've been able to streamline it down to, I think really with most of the delegates being cyber now, it's helped.
Yeah.
But as you saw, you still have people that want to challenge everything and challenge Robert's rules of order and policy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It can turn into a long day. And ultimately, basically, generally, everything always gets passed, and it did. So. Anything you two would like to add?
I think it was it's an interesting viewpoint into how some school board members love to live in the weeds when they could be up in the chopper overhead instead, and that would have made a much simpler meeting on a Saturday morning for everybody involved, but instead we lived in the weeds, so.
No, I think it actually brings a good point. Like we had a little legal fair tonight with our attorney at a workshop before the meeting, and some of the things he brought up, you saw at that or heard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, those kind of people that, you know, that's what they do, and can make an interesting couple hours. All right, so we'll move on to item 3.06, Finance Facilities Committee report, Mr. Sanger.
I don't have a report other than the items that were noted for the that we talked about for facilities tonight.
3.07, Board President Report, announcement of an executive session held on October 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. to discuss personnel matters. Announcement of an executive session held this evening, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. to discuss personnel matters. On to item 5, new business, athletics, recreation. Item 5.01, Dr. Lebo.
I'd like to ask the board to approve the winter and spring recreation staff appointments.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? But still, I do this, I think, every year and multiple times a year, but I'd like to thank the 2 doctors right there and Mr. Hartman, who actually came up with the ideas of doing this more seasonally as opposed to when we used to do this, and a lot of our other athletic appointments just annually. You know, why there's 9 of us on the board, I think it's worked out very well. Waiting till closer to the season and then being able to get the people at that time. So.
I actually will make a comment. I'm really proud of this district. I think we've come a long way in how we are evaluating our athletic staff and how, when you can see it in the product. It's not all about wins and losses. It was when I was growing up. It's not now, but it's not all about wins and losses, but it's also, I always used to say when I had kids in the districts, it's about mentorship and it's about teaching these kids. And I just want to, across the board, I've seen that the product that we're giving these young adults and children it's improving year after year after year. And it's not just in wins and losses.
And that goes over into all of our extracurriculars.
Yeah,
the
I
music
agree.
and the theater. I mean, it's just amazing where we're at and, the growth we've had.
Yep.
All right, any other comments? Mrs. Swigert.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 6, new business, budget and finance. Item 6.01, Ms. Morgan.
I'd like to ask the board to approve the treasurer's report as per the attachments, which include the following. Number 1 is the treasurer's report for September 2024. Number 2 is the treasurer's report for October 2024. Number 3 is the board budget report for October 2024. Number 4 is the general fund invoices paid check number 69396 through 69600 in the amount of $4,425,820.80. Number 5 is the electronic payments in the amount of $5,759,802.43. Number 6 is the general fund invoices payable check number 69601 through 69658 in the amount of $1,929,014.02. Number 7 is the capital reserve fund invoices paid check number 1921 through 1928 in the amount of $204,476.03. Number 8 is the series of 2022 construction fund invoices paid check number 140 in the amount of $2,554.78. Number 9 is the series of 2023 construction fund invoices paid check number 284 through 302 in the amount of $1,895,650.49. And lastly, oh, I'm so sorry. Lastly, thank you. Number 10 is the investment portfolio.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion or questions?
I'll just remind publicly that this includes the September and October because of the October meeting being so early due to the holiday.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Swigert.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 6.02, Ms. Morgan.
I'd like to ask the board to adopt the attached Act 1 resolution establishing the board will not raise taxes above Act 1 index of 5% when approving the 2025-2026 general fund budget.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Mrs. Swigert.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
6.03, Ms. Morgan.
I'd like to ask the board to approve the attached transportation services agreement and the intergovernmental agreement for the installation of school bus transportation cameras.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
When do we anticipate that being implemented?
So I would say the timing will be dependent on the 3 municipalities. We have confirmed with Bus Patrol that we don't need all 3 to sign for us to be able to install the cameras and start using them. But I think just from a logistics standpoint, we would like at least the borough and the township, borough of Mechanicsburg and the borough and township to be signed on board. And so some of it's a timing issue of getting the agreement signed by those local municipalities. And then we also will work with local media and advertisement just to make sure people are aware that we're implementing this program so that we don't just kind of magically turn the cameras on one day. So I think all that said, based on the November approval, assuming the agreements flow with our municipalities, I would probably expect sometime January, February, probably realistically. They don't have a huge, it's not a big backorder timeline to get the cameras in, and once we get the agreements in place, bus patrol will start moving. So, but late winter, early spring, I think.
This year.
2025, yes, is our goal.
We can start the cameras, or the bus patrol can start without issuing tickets is the intergovernmental part of it, right?
Yeah, and so to your point, it's interesting, and,
Yeah.
and Dr. Vincent shared about just how the camera systems are configured, but also the artificial intelligence. And so the camera systems know when they're inside the boundaries that they're able to ticket. And so they'll record in that way, and then they'll go through the local police departments, and tickets will be processed and issued. If it just so happens that one of the municipalities doesn't have it up and running yet, the inside cameras and the regular cameras will still work like they would otherwise, but it just won't be tickets until we get that agreement.
Does this be paid by the citations themselves?
Yeah. So the citations fund the camera systems ultimately.
We would like that there were no citations.
Sure, that'd be our
As a
preference.
school district, I think publicly, we would like that nobody would break the law around children and school buses. But, yeah, I just want to state that. I just want to say, I don't know if that's fair to say. I'm not speaking for the entire board, but I just said I would. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 6.04, Mr. Kicklon.
I'd like to ask the board to approve the tax policies report as presented.
Second.
Second.
Further discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 7, new business
Can I ask you a
curriculum.
question? Do you mind if
Sure.
I hate, because I didn't ask this question, I didn't know how to introduce. Twice now, we've mentioned AI in this meeting. As a parent with 2 kids in college, and looking at what AI has actually done to create, it's actually fascinating that you can put in something into AI and say, I want to generate this. As a school district, is our administration and our teachers talking about this? And I don't, you don't have to bring this up, I know this wasn't on the agenda, but I heard AI twice, and it's just, like, this is serious business.
It came up at the PSBA.
I think Peter can answer that question.
Oh, okay, because this is like,
Yeah.
It's a hot topic.
So I'll just share, without getting into too much that we would present on at a future time, but Dr. Bowman and Mrs. Woodall are both part of, and Mrs. Greenlaw are part of a committee right now that has met once, twice, a couple times, once, that is looking at.
yeah, I figured the answer was yes, you are looking at it, because it's fascinating what this stuff does.
Peter,
And
would you like to
scary.
add a little just on what transpired on November 2nd?
Yeah, sure. They're talking about using AI to evaluate state writing performance from students. They wanted to get rid of any consideration of AI for this legislative agenda for this year. But they tabled that because they're realizing it's growing so fast that it could actually have practical uses in conjunction with human beings grading or assessing student writing. So at the state level, that was one consideration. All I can say is from where I am in the trenches, it's growing so fast and changing so rapidly. A policy we adopted just a year ago, we're just rewriting businesses. We can't even keep up fast enough because it's changing so fast. So yeah, it's something to stay on top of, definitely.
You can have AI write the policy.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
To run itself, yeah.
That's just it, I mean, this stuff is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's physicians that are writing grants and getting major grants, and the AI writes the grant. It's crazy what this is.
At work, we're even using it for emails.
Sorry, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent.
That's okay.
It came up too much.
It works. Item 7.01, Mrs. Howell.
I ask the board to approve the new course proposal for astronomy as presented in the attachment.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Swigert.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
7.02, Mrs. Huff.
I ask the board to approve the new course proposal for Introduction to Hydroponics as presented in the attachment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 7.03, Mrs. Huff.
I ask the board to approve the new course proposal for Sports Analytics as presented in the attachment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
7.04, Mrs. Huff.
I ask the board to approve the new course proposal for Foundations of Computer Science as presented in the attachment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 7.05, Mrs. Huff.
I ask the board to approve the new course proposal for Investments and Valuations as presented in the attachment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question on all these. I'm sorry, I'm catching up from the work session, so I wasn't at, but so if this was covered, tell me. But these are all to be implemented in 25, 26. But the high school schedule has like the way the blocks work and the way the semester schedule works. Can we deploy any of these spring semester? Spring semester of 25. Looks like some of the teachers are in place, some of the things are like, it seems like.
So even though there's opportunity to tweak some of the schedule for the spring semester, and certainly on an individual student basis, there's opportunity to adjust kids' schedules, the master schedule is built for the year in totality. So to be able to insert one of these courses already for the spring would be tricky with teacher schedules, again, already built for the entirety of the year back in the fall.
I see.
That's a question. Do these courses have any prerequisites or specific grades that are permitted to take those classes?
Without remembering every single one, I want to say that at least one of them required some algebra, but I think largely they were opportunity because of the nature of them for students to be able to.
One of them was what, algebra, either in high school or middle school?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's right, yeah. But other than that, I don't think.
That's the only one that I recall. Any other discussion? Questions? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 8, new business facilities, 8.01, Mr. Sanger.
I make a motion to approve the high school project change order track replacement as presented in the attachment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 8.02, Mr. Sanger.
I make a motion to authorize the administration and district architect to bid the middle school stair tower project.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 9, new business, personnel, item 9.01, Mr. Bradley.
I'd ask the board to approve the personnel report as per the attachments.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 9.02, Mr. Bradley.
I'd ask the board to approve the business manager job description as per the attached.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Swiger.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 9.03, Mr. Bradley.
I'd ask the board to approve the appointment of Bobby Ely as business manager effective for the 2024-2025 school year through June 30th, 2028.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Mrs. Swigert.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Congratulations, Mrs. Ely.
So I just want to thank the board for this awesome opportunity and the confidence you have in me to continue. I also want to thank the administration, especially Mr. Longwell, Dr. Bitts, and Dr. Lighty for their mentorship, support, and bringing me into the MASE family. I've learned a lot, and my business office team has provided great support for me, and it wouldn't be successful without them behind me. And I look forward to many more years here at Mechanicsburg, and I hope to continue our partnership. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you for all that you do. Item 10, new business policy. Item 10.01, Mr. Friend.
I ask the board to extend the terms of the board president and vice president until December 10th, 2024, where a reorganization meeting will be held at that time.
We have a second. Just as a comment to our 3 new board members, this is because our schedule doesn't coincide with the state, so therefore we have to, because we don't vote at our second meeting in the month, so we have to extend those terms in December to comply with the law.
Just squeaking out.
Get a little extra couple days this way.
So in approving this, we're not obligated to vote for you.
That is correct. This
Absolutely.
occurs every year
No
as
obligations.
Just wanted to-
Darn it.
in our entire time here.
I don't
We have
remember
any-
doing this when Don was
We
president, but
always
that's
did.
okay.
We always did. Any further discussion or questions? Mrs. Swigert.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 10.02, Mr. Frangel.
I ask the board to approve the second and final reading of the revised board policy 807, opening exercises, moment of silence, flag displays, as per the attached.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Swigert.
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the roll call as unanimous vote.
Item 12, hearing of visitors. We have reached a second opportunity for public comment. This opportunity is reserved for comments on issues not listed on the agenda and not being voted upon this evening. As a reminder, public comment is limited to residents and taxpayers of the school district. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and requires community members to observe a reasonable decorum. If you'd like to address the board, please come up to the podium and share your name and the municipality in which you reside. This is for items that were not on the agenda and not voted on tonight. Seeing none. Item 13, Ms. Morgan.
I'd like to ask the board to adjourn.
The second. Not the second. Meeting is adjourned.